Hi everyone. Hi everyone. I'm so glad to be here with you. We're going to be doing a presentation today, and it is phenomenal. It's awesome. This is the Maven, Bible Magic Maven, and you're watching Bible Magic 8 TV. Welcome all. Just reminding everyone it is springtime, um, and we are definitely on lockdown as well, on quarantine in my household. So, it's all rough and finish, if I can put it that way, with what's going on, because we're definitely trying to be obedient and mindful of the experience that we're having with what is called corona, or COVID-19, and what is being called a virus, and how it's affecting or the experience that we're having. All across the land, all over the globe, the planet at this time. So I want to welcome you. I'm doing like this pop up presentation because of some downloads that I've had, and I want you to be a part of it, front and center, to just be in the know about the direction that Bible Magic 8 TV is going in. Myself, for those of you who may not know me, I am Bible Magic Maven, and I also am going by the Maven as of late. I am a metaphysician, a grassroots metaphysician, a prophetess. I am a what else? The positions I'm holding, few things. I've been going in the past. I've said I'm a Christian witch, and then I said that the acronym witch stands for Woman in Total Control of Herself, or it can also mean another worker in total control of himself, if you want to put it that way. So, magician, seer, you name it. That's those are some of the other titles that I go by in the works that I do, the spiritual work that I do, spiritualist, if you want to say it that way. So this is the things that I like to share. Now that's just for an introduction, but I definitely want to take a moment. Now this is something that I do on a daily basis as of late, um, because of the experiences that we're having at this time, and what some are calling the end times. Some are saying the book of Revelation is, the seals have been opened, you name it. So there's a few different mindsets about it. But I want to at least honor our brothers and sisters all across the planet, um, and send out all kinds of love out into the stratosphere, in that realm that love can be placed and then shared throughout the multiverse, for those who have actually lost loved ones who've transitioned, so we can put it that way. I want to just send out a big hug, mystical smooches as well at this time, because I definitely have been where you're at, losing loved ones, and in light of what we are understanding and knowing about this particular experience that we're having, is that it's something that we cannot help. It's things that are happening against our will, things of that nature. From a esoteric realm or the occultic realm, we think differently. We say people make choices. They may have contracts. They come here with a contract, things like that. But be that as it may, many people may or may not understand that aspect of it. So we want to at least have the the compassion at this time to come in a from a just a natural level. A lot of scriptures and information says first natural, then spiritual. I go between the worlds, but I want to say from a natural perspective, my heart goes out, and I would like to have in the very beginning of this sharing time, a moment of silence for brothers and sisters all around the planet, the globe, right now. A moment of silence. Ashe. Ashe, we say we love you, and our hearts are definitely with you at this time. We send out affirmation prayers and lots of hugs. So I know that we cannot replace that loss with those type of things, but at least we want to share that and give you the uh, you know the love that I feel is something that we can share and give to those who are considered to be our brothers and sisters, and just put that out there into the land, into the realms that are able to reach you. So thank you for that moment and that time. I just wanted to share that. So so here we are. We have a time to share this evening, and I did it right after midnight. I kind of set this everything up before midnight because I wanted to have this presentation go forth, and I'm very excited about where I am right now because the as it stands, well, first of all, I've named this video, this live video, Corona Crown Resurrection. And Corona meaning, crown in Spanish, and um, resurrection being this time of year with the weekend coming up as we know it to be Easter. And we're going to go into the aspect of what we know that to be for based on what is current, what we know Easter to be. We're going to go into that, but we're going to also remember what we've known it to be, what Easter means. So it means the resurrection, the passions of the one we know as Christ, Jesus, Yeshua, um, different names, but depending on the school of thought you're in, the region of the world you're in. But Yeshua, and we recognize that as a past acknowledgement of that particular energy, if you want to call that particular energy um, historical or fictional, whatever the case might be. I know that there's all kinds of different thought processes about it, but I'm going to share some things this evening that I know it to be, that I've experienced it to be. This is my sharing time. So let's kind of get into it, and I hope you can enjoy it with me. So, we're on lockdown and quarantine, and different things are coming down, downloading into spirit. But one particular thing that I want to share definitely is the full moon. So, as of last evening, it was Tuesday, April 7th, 2020. And in my time zone, at about, what was it, 10:20, we went into the full moon, full illumination, 100%. So that energy is there, is being called the full pink or Paschal moon, the Paschal moon. And I had a download from spirit, an epiphany where I had a breakthrough, a spiritual experience with what I'm calling the Yoni portal. And you'll see that picture there above where it says Yoni portal. And I'm going to share with you in just a moment what that means to me. And hopefully you can glean some other things from it. The Yoni portal, it's pretty deep. But in just a moment here on my screen, I'm going to just give a mystical smooches to you because I'm going to be going into a screen in just a moment where I'm going to be sharing about the Yoni portal, the pink moon, the full moon being in the sign of the star sign of Libra. So I'm going to be sharing about that in just a moment. So before I do that, I just want to just give a shout out. I like to at least show myself in the beginning of the presentation so you can see me, and and then we'll get into it. So Yoni portal. So just remember that particular symbolism that you see there, and then I'll explain in just a moment how that came to be. All right. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to transition my screen over, and it's going to now be a screen where it's going to show you the presentation. So that's exciting. It's really exciting for me because what I put together this presentation after, and again, I'm going to get into a little bit more about what it is. But there's a presentation that I put together after this particular spiritual experience happened for me. So I'm going to transition over right now, and you're going to see the presentation. Here we go. All right, everyone. So hopefully you see it there. Um, Let me just check in and make sure it's there. Because I don't want to, one of the worst thing to do is to go through a whole presentation and then the thing you were trying to set up didn't come through. So let's make sure it's, let me see, at the top. Yep. Order it at the top. I told y'all the little Juju woman, she's trying to make sure she's on point, y'all. So, I think I got it. Okay, let me see. Let me make sure. Okay, there it is. Okay, so now I'm on point. Let me transition it. Okay, it's there. All right. I just want to make sure. All right. So, again, before I even start again, I just want to just send my heart out and to those who are on lockdown as well as me. When I say lockdown, maybe I shouldn't put it that way. It's kind of like that sounds a little negative. We're on quarantine for our health. And I've definitely have been going out with my mask on. I know they say put the gloves on. They talk about cleaning your hands. Um, I've been doing that forever. So I've actually had OCD on that. With washing my hands over and over again. I had to get myself together on that, but I've been doing that forever anyway. But for the most part, I'm in it with you and my family, so we're all safe in here. From as far as we know, we did a little ritual. I have two sons. My youngest son is 24. My oldest son is 26. And I thought about with the plagues of now some people are calling this a virus, the COVID-19 or coronavirus. And in biblical days or ancient days, they called it a plague. So, what be that as it may, is the experience of people having dis-ease in their bodies based on certain atmospheric um, changes, if we want to put it that way. So, yes, my family and I have been experiencing this. So we thought of the plagues, and I told my youngest son he anointed his hands, and he put his hand over the doors of our home, in our, in egress and ingress. So, going and bless. We were asking the the spirit of the Most High Divinity to bless our going out and coming in, and we also go out with our masks and gloves. And I have been. Well, I went somewhere the other day and forgot my gloves, so I just went in there and just was able to wing it, and then come back and then do my glove. Wash my hands very thoroughly. So definitely there with everyone. But this is something that we're experiencing. Don't know how long it will last, but I want to definitely be here and let you guys know that I am with you and we are all experiencing this together. So we can share as we can, but I had this download in spirit, so I had to bring it before you on this full moon. So just to let you know that the full moon, the energy thereof is still going on, even though it started yesterday, and it started on April 7th. In the evening, we're still in that energy of the moon. So we can be in that fullness energy as of today. Well, actually was on Wednesday. So now as of midnight, so we're transitioning over our dates here, but we're still within the energy. Usually within 2 to 3 days, you can still experience that fullness thereof, as it's actually considered to be waning now. The moon is waning. So the presentation. So this is the time of year where we talk about Easter, and we also talk about the fact that there was a resurrection. So, what I'm getting into is the feminine aspect of resurrection. So, the full moon in Libra is called a full pink moon. This is one of my favorite phases of the moon softwares. It's actually an app. I'm sorry, an app by M2 Catalyst. I'll try and put a link to that in the description box later on. But it's M2 Catalyst, shows the phases of the moon. You can see it's in full 100% illumination as of yesterday, as I mentioned, in the sign of Libra. Is being called the full pink or Pascal, the Pascal moon, and um, and I'll share about the Pascal and the pink and things like that and what I believe it means. But I know that the Libra sign, of course, is definitely the balance or justice as we know it. So the Libra, that's the star sign of Libra, which we'll also say the zodiacal sign. It usually falls at a different time of the year, when it comes to the sun itself, but we're talking about energies when we talk about the moon being in the energy, because the moon passes through the signs faster than, of course, the sun does. The sun takes a whole 30 days, and then the moon has a different phase or cycles where it kind of goes through about 2.5 days through each sign. So we're in Libra, the energy thereof, and we're talking about energies. I know that we talk about moon signs and stars and things of that nature, but we're just talking about an energy and what has been studied for thousands of years to be a balanced energy or justice, being the seeking of justice for all. So that's an aspect of it. So what the full moon is considered to be Paschal moon is when the full moon falls prior to Easter. It's considered to be a Paschal moon. Paschal moon. And I want you to remember that. P is in Paul, Aschal, Paschal, because we're going to come back to that at a later date. So remember that name. I'm going to say name. I'm going to give you a hint as to what I'm referring to. Some of you might already know what Paschal, how the significance of that name, but right now we're just going to leave it as is. But I'm going to come back to it at another date, later lessons. We're talking about right now the goddess energy, which is all about fertility, sex, love, and war. So that's what this is the season of. Springtime is a season of that. So we're going to have follow-up sessions on this and throughout the next few days leading up to, of course, this full aspect of Easter, resurrection, and all of that good stuff. So it's a really great time. I know we're experiencing what we are with the coronavirus, but I'm going to get into why I talked about coronation on my very first slide. I'm actually going to go back to it because I want you to see where I put in coronation here when I talked about the coronavirus. Coronation is going to be significant in just a bit here because you see corona is in the word coronation. We're going to get into it in just a bit here. So let's get into it. All right. So the star sign of Libra governs the sacral chakra. The sacral chakra. So of course the word sacral comes from sacred. I've talked about chakras before. This is not about chakras, so I'm just gonna just kind of buzz right through that. um, no pun intended. Buzz, bees, birds, bees, flowers, trees. Okay. Yeah, I went there. So the sacral chakra or energy center. Some people might say chakra, some people might say energy center. I go between the worlds myself, but many people should know what chakra is. We're not talking about chakras right now, so but that's the energy thereof when we talk about the sign of Libra. So what is the sacral chakra? The sacral chakra has to do with the loins or the kidneys. When we talk about that energy center, you'll see loins used a lot in ancient texts. I mean, they talked about loins, girding your loins, and things of that nature. So that's something that's very common. But what they're referring to is that energy center. So the region of the sexual organs, especially when it's regards to like the source of like erotica, or procreative power. So that is a power thereof. Now, it's been misused throughout the centuries, thousands of years actually. So it's not seen as power in many ways. It's been shunned, it's been vilified, that erotic part of ourselves. Um, and we're going to be doing some talks about changing that aspect moving forward. So we're talking about the lower abdomen, that region. We're talking about a yoga path of Tantra yoga. So we're not talking about Tantra right now, but many of you, if you're familiar with Tantra yoga, you'll know why that all ties in together. So it's your center. So your self awareness, your self actualization comes from that lower region, your abdominal region. You'll see a lot of people, and this is something that, and we're not getting into that right now, but when you see people doing belly dancing, and that's more of an ancient practice, but it's something that even some people are doing now, where you get into belly dancing, that is allowing yourself to loosen that particular area and actually playing into and getting into the aspect of acknowledging your spiritual center. So that's a quality. It's a quality of being able to center yourself and have balance. So when we talk about the Libra and you see the scales of balance, there's different balance aspects of it. When we talk about balance, it's more than just scales, for sure. So the Libra symbol of Libra usually falls between September 24th and October 23rd. I kind of touched on that when I talked about the sun sign, but now we're talking about an energy, which is the moon sign. So, but just to give you some aspects of Libra, because we're talking about it, we're talking about the sign of the statesman or statesperson or a manager. So this is people, you can see that someone who's stately, someone who's a leader, and they have a certain, I don't want to say they're rigid, but they're extremely well balanced, disciplined. I'm going to throw that in there. They want to be as considered honorable, sympathetic, artistic, alert, just. Get back into justice. Affectionate and also painstaking. That means that they will just go through any length to make things, work in that balance as in these particular characteristics. So also the Libra is a part of the cardinal signs. So the cardinal signs, of course, are the Aries, the Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. So these are the signs that go along with North, South, East, and West. So we get into the sign of the cross, and we're not going to talk about that right now. I didn't even put that into the into my presentation here because we have that coming up because we're definitely going to be getting into the cross later on this week. But the cardinal signs. So we talk about north, south, east, and west. Those are the cardinal signs, and the cardinal, star signs are as such, of course. So Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. So these are considered also the air signs. A Libra is an air sign. So we get into more of the intellect, and that goes back to being alert and balanced when we talk about the characteristics. Also, I wanted to put in there, just a few other things about the sign, which kind of like a sidebar is that the Aquarius and Gemini are harmonious signs for marriage, friendship, or business. So, we kind of get into those particular aspects of, what works for people when they are especially born under this sign, or even if you're in the energy thereof. So at this time, if you're doing any type of business in the full moon, if you're dealing with someone who's an Aquarius or Gemini, it can prove to be favorable. The gems, of course, are diamond and opal. Color is indigo blue, and of course, metal is copper. And the Libra is ruled by the sign of Venus, the planet of Venus. So I put plane and a plus sign because that's on that plane, the Venus plane. We're calling it a planet now. The ancients used to call it a star. So that's neither here nor there, but just kind of giving you that kind of food for thought. So now when we get into mundane astrology, and this is the last part of astrology I'm going to get into, but I just want to talk a little bit about the sign of Libra because just want to give you a direction to go in because, we're going to get a little bit more into other aspects of the characteristics of this particular star sign. But in mundane astrology, so everyday societal astrology, the Libra rules the legal profession. So you'll see those balances, scales of balance. They also show the goddess Astera, but we're going to get into that later. Astera. We'll get into that another time since we're talking about goddesses. But a lot of times it's confused with certain aspects, but it's getting into the symbol of the star sign of Virgo. But we're talking just simply about scales because holding of scales. Um, and any type of conciliatory office and relations as well with foreign countries. Um, and it's including the aspects of war. So this is when we get into the justice aspect of the sign of Libra. And it's very, I'm going to be politically correct and I'm not going to get into politics right now. But when we talk about foreign countries and war, and we talk about COVID-19 and Corona, I'm just going to leave that right there. We're going to table that. But this is a sign of balance and justice, and this is kind of where we find ourselves. Um, Again, this is not going to be political, but I want to include this for a point of reference when we talk about councils on human relations and seeking justice. All of this falls into play, especially with what we're going through with right now. So let's table that. And get into the next aspects. With Libra is definitely an air element. Talked about the cardinal qualities. And one aspect of it, now you might not find this in any materials anywhere. Again, like I mentioned, I'm a grassroots metaphysician. I've studied astrology. So some of this stuff is just coming out of the ethers, coming off of my school of thought from being in these positions of study. but it talks about the reproductive trinity or fertility, which is the definite plus conversation when we talk about springtime and the direction I'm going in with the goddess and the mother goddess. So just remember that reproductive trinity or fertility, and then also some keywords were intuition, justice, and equilibrium. So these are other aspects of the sign of Libra and how it plays into springtime, and of course resurrection. So we'll continue, and all of this will come together. But I do want to just circle back to Libra as balance when it talks about the Scorpio and the Sagittarius, which talks about the imitative ability and the power to reform and renew. So that's what springtime means. We're reforming, we're renewing, we're getting grass, we're getting trees coming in, trees are budding. We're in April, so we get the April showers and bring the May flowers. And what this is doing is what's called the utilitarian or reproductive trinity or fertility. So that's what this is all about. Fertility is the main aspect, the key word when we're talking about the goddess at this time, and why it's so important to realize that this has to come together for us all. Um, and remembering what we're talking about in this next part of the presentation, the goddess mother, mother neter or nature. So look up the word netter. It's worth your study. We won't get it further into it right now. But this is all going to unfold. I want to just really get you into this with me because it is yummy, yummy. I'm so glad to be a part of this download because it's just time. I've been ready to do this for so, so long. But we're talking about goddess, mother, neter, or nature, the shared deities of fertility or the sacral chakra, so that energy center. So let's get into the different aspects. Now, I'm going to just kind of go over them. I'm going to name them. And it's definitely a place you want to go on your own and research these particular names. I want to hold it on this screen for just a moment so that you can get a chance to uh, read through it and then pause the screen. It's so worth it to study these particular goddesses at this time. We're not, and I want to put this out here, we're not forgetting about the gods, but we've studied the gods for a long, long time. We've lived in that particular paradigm for a long, long time, but we're going through a seismic shift right now that I've mentioned before. The spiritual awakening that I talked about for some time now is happening now. So this download with the full moon was amazing, and I'm sharing because it is a time, especially this time of year, springtime, that we're going to be transitioning over into the goddess mother Neter, mother nature, and she wants her place back. She wants to be back with the balance of the God goddess experience. And we're going to help usher that energy in, most definitely. So let's get into the regions of the world and how they look at this throughout the years, thousands of years that we've known of these stories. So first, let's get into Africa, Mother Africa, um, the motherland as it's called. Some of the names for the goddess is Hathor, Yemaya, Yemoya, Oshun. And this last one, I highlighted it because this is definitely something worth studying. We're going to talk about this later on, of course. There's quite a few seeds I'm planting, um, but and celebrating because this information is long overdue, in my opinion. But of course, I want to go according to the timing of His Most High Spirit. But the names, I've put slashes here because throughout the centuries, depending on what region of the world or who's telling it, you might hear this god is known as Nu, Noon, Naunet. Okay, so Noon, underlined Noon. We've seen that pronounced none. So Noon is how it is pronounced. So let me go back just a bit. Uh, we're gonna stay on this screen for just a bit. Acadia and Sumeria and Semitic is Tiamat, Ishtar, and Astarte. So these are other names for the goddess, and these are all the goddess of this particular sacral chakra and the goddess of fertility. Okay, so we're talking about fertility, which has to do, of course, with that lower abdomen area. In India, this is Rakini, Saraswati, or Chandra Devi, or Devi. You might hear Diva, but Debbie. In Europe, Mary, whether we're talking about Mother Mary or Mary Magdalene. These there's so many layers to this. We'll have to get into another time. I'm just going to move through it. Demeter, Aphrodite is Greek, and then the Roman aspect of that is Venus. So Venus, of course, being the star or the planet Venus, which that's another aspect we'll get into. And biblically, since we're talking about Bible Magic 8, talking about the aspect of how the Bible ties into these ancient stories, we're talking about Esther. Esther, she's described in the book of Esther as a Jewish queen of the Persian king Ahasuerus. In the narrative, Ahasuerus seeks a new wife after his queen Vashti refuses to obey him. Then Esther is chosen for her beauty. So Esther comes in and takes over after Vashti is actually she's dispelled from the king's harem, which is she was one of the wives, a part of the harem. So we won't get into the harem aspect until a little later on, most likely, but I'm going to move forward with that. So, getting back to the book of Esther. Now, this is going to get us into the aspects of resurrection. So, the goddess deities of resurrection. So, the whole series of within the book of Esther, it talks about a series of banquets. So, there's a few banquets that are talked about here. There's a total of 7 of them, 7 banquets, and we're going to kind of tie it in with why that number 7 is so important and how it ties into resurrection. So we know for sure that it's 2 that were given by the king, one by Vashti, that was the first wife that was exiled, considered to be the queen at that time. There was 3 that was given by Esther, and then there's one joyful banqueting that ends the book of Esther. So the reason why I bring up these banquets, they call them banquets, but anytime you have these type of festivals or banquets, we know them as what? A corona, a coronation. So I put corona and I talk about coronation, which we know corona means crown in Spanish. So we're crowning of the queen or king. So a queen in this case. So this is what we have. And there's 7 of them. So, of course, when we look at the numerology of 7, it's the number of completion, perfection, according to Chaldean numerology, aside from Pythagorean. So, the Chaldean numerology, which is common in the ancient texts, and especially the biblical text, is considered to be this numerology that means perfection and completion. So, this is going to tie in just a moment with why the 7 is important. So Esther, where do we get Esther? We get the word Easter, Ishtar. So this is the aspect of this particular resurrection. It's tied into the resurrection Sunday or the Passion. We hear the Passions of Christ or the Paschal of Christ. So Paschal, of course, as I mentioned, was the full moon. So the story, this story is about fertility. When we talk about the book of Esther, it's the same aspects of the goddess I mentioned. It's a retelling. Okay, so we're talking about fertility, sex. Vashti was the first wife. She was part of the first queen. Then Esther came in. She became part of the harem. They downplay it, but it's what it is. And we talk about love within this particular book of Esther, which we think about the cousin Mordecai. She loved her cousin Mordecai. He was loving her. He loved her. That's why he came there to help. And there's some other things that happened where he was able to help the king from being killed, save the king from being killed. And then there was a war that was going to be started against the Jewish people, and they were able to stop it based on him being there. So there were some things that tied together. So we have all the aspects of what this time of year means, springtime, which is fertility, sex, love, and war. So as I mentioned, so what are we talking about here, people? We're talking about celestial activity. It's given in the form of a story. Okay, so when we talk about Ishtar, what do we see in there? If we take out the I and H, we have star. A lot of times we have ways as these stories are being retold. There is an original story. We'll get into where the original story came from. That's not what this is about right now, but there's an original story that has been gleaned from. So cultural sharing of the story, but essentially we are talking about the sky or the sky gods and goddesses. And we're talking about springtime, we're talking about seasons, and we're also talking about the female sacral chakra, or where is it? The female deities of resurrection. We're talking about the resurrection of what? Eggs and fertility. Bringing this all home because I've had people ask, what are the eggs for? Why do they have eggs around Easter? What does that have to do with anything? It's a pagan symbolism. It's been a story told over and over again. There is the original story, which again we'll come back to that another time, but the life and death of the female egg for renewal of life and through birth. That's what we're talking about. There's been elaborate storylines, but the people that are considered to be the adepts, those who know the actual story, they know that we're talking about, the life and death of the female egg, meaning their, the fertility when it comes to bringing about life and children through the womb. What the Yoni portal. So hey, it's tying in, right? It's tying in. So these stories, even from the original place, they were stories basically shared within the oral traditions of various cultures. And then we had foreigners to come in and see the wealth in the stories because they're so powerful. And then they, of course, took over the stories and then they went across the world, around the globe, around the planet, and changed their meaning. And as I mentioned, we're given elaborate storylines in many cases, but we're talking about the same aspects, whether we change the names through spelling, through regional dialects, it doesn't matter. So we get into Ishtar, as I mentioned. You take out the I, the H, you have it as star. And as I mentioned earlier, there's an ancient belief of the star or the planet of Venus. Venus was considered to be a star in ancient times. So Anana, Ishtar, Anana is another region of the world. They say Anana, but Ishtar is the most. There's a very famous myth. Let's tie into the seven aspects or the seven banquets, and this is how I'm able to kind of decode, decipher the story of Esther to realize that it is Ishtar or Easter, because of the number seven of banquets. Okay, so there's a famous myth for Ishtar. It's a story of her descent into the underworld. Okay, and it's called Ker. So the ancient Sumerians underworld. It's a myth in which she attempts to conquer the domain of her older sister, and Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld. So she's trying to conquer them. And instead, she's deemed guilty because she's said to be vain, things like that. But she has to go before the seven judges of the underworld. So they find her guilty, and then she's said to be quote unquote struck dead. Okay, but how long does she die? If you look at the story, it's worth reading. I'm telling you, it's worth going and reading. She's gone for 3 days and 3 nights. Okay, I'm gonna leave that there. This is a story about the goddess, so we're gonna just leave it there for now. But 3 days and 3 nights, and when it was 3 days and 3 nights, they were saying that there was nothing growing, plants weren't growing, trees weren't growing, things like that, and then she was delivered. So we'll get into that another time. But I want to talk about the portal, the Yoni portal. So you'll see this particular symbol here on the screen. I have the full moon here because I want to tie it into what the great epiphany that I had, the spiritual experience. So it was the day of right before the full moon. This was on Tuesday. I'm preparing things and doing things around in my quarantine and lock. I said I was gonna stop saying lockdown, but during the quarantine. So I'm kind of preparing things and going about, cleaning, whatever I was doing. So I sit my phone down right under my skylight, and as it's under the skylight, I look on the ceiling and I see that there is this particular symbol. Now, this is a real symbol. This is my picture. I took it. And what does it look like? If you look at it very closely, especially in the very middle, you'll see that it looks like a yoni, the opening of a yoni. And I knew at that moment when I saw it, I said, okay, this is the yoni portal. I knew that the full moon was coming that night. The full pink or Paschal moon was coming just before Easter. And I said, okay, it's time. it's time to get into helping the mother to reclaim her positioning and get into balance. And that's why it's so important that we're in the zodiacal sign or energy of Libra right now. It's about balance and justice. So the balance is the balance between the God and the goddess. Okay. We've had it where we had goddess worship for so long, and then we had it where we had God worship. Now we're getting back into the balance of it. And the Yoni portal is going to help us to do that. I thought it was so powerful. I took this picture. I said, keeping this picture forever. I'm gonna make it a screensaver throughout this time, this season that we're going to be working on avenging the goddess, if I can put it that way, and the memory thereof, and just bringing her back into her positioning, and the things that we're experiencing right now with the corona um, plague, if you want to say it that way. It all ties into bringing balance and being this seismic shift that's going on, this spiritual shift that I talked about, that the spiritual climate was going to change like never before. So we are here. We're in this time. So I'm going to go back to what I talked about in the beginning of my Ask a Mystic live chat. We talked about the Tarot de Marseille, or the TDM, and as you can see, the yoni is the symbolism, as I mentioned. And at that time, it was coming to me, this particular symbolism in the world and the aspects thereof. We also have in the four corners, we have the zodiacal signs. We talked about the Taurus, talked about Leo, we talked about the Scorpio and Aquarius. And we'll get into that another time. But this all ties into this time of as we experience this bringing together, this birth and this life, and then this death and resurrection that's going on. So all tying into this time of year. So we definitely on point. I know people think of it as a linear life pattern. I mean, I learned about that in college as well, the linear life pattern, which I know works in many cases. There's times where you want there to be a linear life pattern. So you go through the birth, you go through early childhood, adulthood, later adulthood, and then you go through your transitioning into death, and then so on and so forth. And then they see that as it. However, when we talk about seasons, we talk about the moon cycles, we're talking about an aspect of a cyclical of life as a cyclical nature, within a cyclical nature. So that's a different aspect. So this is a time of year where we're thinking about spring, we're thinking about the egg, we're thinking about our cycles as women, the goddess mother. A lot of people have perverted that through the years. But this is actually a time for the Yoni portal to be remembered, and then we're going to actually talk about the the beauty of it, how sacred that is. When we talk about a sacral chakra or a sacral energy center, we're talking about the sacred aspect of the yoni and bringing that back as not a perverted aspect. We're going to remember it as something that is bringing life, it's beautiful, it's to be reverenced, it's no longer going to be prostituted as it was as it's mentioned in the scriptures. And I used to think of that as, oh, they're just downing or degrading the woman, and they're letting her just seem as, as a prostitute. And if that's someone's line of work, and that's how they make it, I'm not passing judgment. I'm just saying that that's something that the world sees as well, not the best uh, profession. And some have called it the oldest profession in the world. I'm going to keep my mouth off of it like that. But some people see it as being a negative epithet to say, oh, someone's a prostitute. But I realized something about that aspect in the scriptures. I don't know that they were saying it was a negative aspect, because I have a whole other paradigm shift of thought on that. I believe that they were saying that that was an actual prostitute, meaning she was being prostituted, and in essence, they're telling on themselves. And so when I showed you the word noon as a goddess, and I said we pronounce it nun, we're going to get into that later on too, what the nun really means. Just think of the handmaiden. If you've seen that movie on Hulu, I think it's on, called The Handmaiden, you're going to really get what I'm referring to. So we'll come back to that. But the Yoni portal, the Yoni portal in the full moon, we're going to get into this because it's time. It's time. So back to the Libra's balance and justice. We're going to bring balance to this God goddess thought process. We're going to even the scales on it and bring justice to the goddess mother. The mother goddess wants her position back. She no longer wants to just be used for her eggs in her womb. The Yoni is going to become sacred once again. These stories about Son of God is very one-sided. It's needed, but there's also a daughter of God. There's also a mother of God, which has been left there somewhat in the background. Mother Mary, that's in the background. And then there's also the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit, that aspect of the that is more of an androgynous nature. So we're going to get that back. So the goddess of fertility, sex, love, and war. Sex is no longer going to be considered a hex. So there's some aspects of that word sex we're going to work on, but that's what we know it to be. So I left it as such until we get into the transitioning. Remember, I'm a grassroots metaphysician. A lot of these things are pioneer, groundbreaking, new downloads for a new era. We're going to go into now. I heard one of my gurus on the social media platform. I'm going to give her the credit. Uh, Her name is, I love her so much, Indigo or Osset. She said that we're going to have life in a BC, which is different, not before Christ, but it's going to be called before Corona. And then there's going to be life after the Corona or the afterlife. Instead of it being AD or Anno Domini, the year of our Lord, or the after death of Christ, it's going to be now the afterlife, the AL. So we're still working on that one too. But it was a download she mentioned, which I thought was brilliant. So before Christ, before Corona, and then after Corona. So these are pioneering thoughts. Books are being written, you name it, as we go into this new paradigm shift, the seismic shift, which is the after or BC, before Corona, and then afterlife. So we're working on that. We're going to tweak it a little bit more, and we're going to get more into it. But we're talking about the goddess as well as the god. The god and the goddesses of fertility, sex, love, and war. So let's talk about the full moon meditation. Then we're going to end this out. I hope that wasn't too much, but I just had to get it out. I'm just talking off the cuff on a lot of this when it talks about the before Corona, after Corona. But the gist of it is we had a full moon, and the full moon was the pink moon. We're still in the energies, and I'm going to give you a full moon meditation that I was able to do last night, and I want to share this with you because we're still in the energies thereof. So the first part of it is that, and this is going to be talking about bringing back the goddess and aspects of it. But it's a radiant full moon. It resonates with ovulation and fertility. If you didn't get where I was going with that, ovulation and fertility. This is not a bad thing. This is a sacred thing, as in sacral chakra, sacral energy center. So it's very sacred. Okay, so we're going to get back into the aspect of that being sacred. This is a reaping phase when the mature egg, when we get back into eggs around the star time, uh, in its fullness, the egg is in its fullness. It's released and it's ready to become fertilized with, of course, the sperm. So that's why we cannot get rid, of course, of our God thought process or the masculine. So the thought process of the God and the goddess, we're going to bring that back so that we can get harmony and balance. So another way of thinking of balance is harmony. So living harmoniously within these energies. Okay, so this is where we are. This is where we're graduating to as we're going through this particular spiritual shift, realizing that this is where we're graduating to. And this is a time to celebrate your achievements throughout the past month. So bringing everything forward. If you have your grimoire and you have your book of spells, book of shadows as well called, and your journals, your dream journals, it's a time to look through there and celebrate things that have come to pass. And that's a way of meditating. You can do this actually in a celebratory fashion. You can turn on your music, get your liquid spirits out, or even your tea time, whether it's hot toddy, it doesn't matter. A way to celebrate and just, go into the happy place. Do that happy dance. A cell libation, as I like to call it as well. So, list them one by one. So give thanks for each one of those particular achievements that you were able to accomplish. And then under this moon's light, be still. So I've been doing that, absorbing the powerful energy of the moon. Just feel her glorious beauty. Feel it, that whole light. I like to actually sit within the moon and let my shadow be seen on wherever, whether it be on the ground or on the floor, within my home, and just bask in that particular bath of that. Um, and just allow yourself to really go into that particular energy from the moon, and know that you are the moon. You and the moon resonate in a synchronistic rhythm. So synchronistic is a synchronic rhythm. And at this time, many of us, when I say us, I mean females in our that are cycling. When you have your what's called a menstrual cycle or the moon cycle, I've heard people call this their moon cycle. Your cycle changes at this time of year, meaning that if you were having your cycle during the full moon before, it might change to the new moon and vice versa. So if you're having a cycle at the new moon, it's going to change to the full moon. So you'll see that shift at this time. So our bodies are actually synced with the moon, us women. So I think we've gotten away from remembering that. All right. And then the last part of it, you're going to see the happiness, the theatrical faces here. So it's at this time, more stress shows up for those who are stressed, and less stress shows up for those who are not stressed. So remember that aspect so that you can, move in that energy thereof. So keep this screen up. I had it set on a timer, so it kind of transitioned out of it, but I'm going to leave it there for just a moment until it transitions, and then we're going to go back into just a simple presentation. Then we're going to close it out. I'm going to also see if anyone came into the chat room. It's after midnight, and we're running into an hour here, it looks like. But this was a good experience. I hope this whole download I've had from Spirit makes sense to everyone. And we're going to keep moving through these next several days as we're moving into the resurrection time. I have some more stuff for you to share. Um, I want to get into presentation more now and sharing so that you'll have things on the screen to kind of keep with you and use out here in these spiritual streets, as I like to say. We out in these spiritual streets trying to make this spiritual thing happen. Um, so yeah, there we go. So we're going to time out of that. We're going to get back into our screens here when we get into our, let me see what we're going to get here. So I hope you guys were able to follow along. And I'm not sure if, let me see what we have on here. Oh yeah, here we go. I'm going to bring that back to the front. And then I'm going to also look and see if we had anybody kind of come in and join us. It'd be good if we did. We can answer some questions or whatever the case might be. Hi, everybody. Here I am. I'm kind of close. So forgive me because I am in my at home mode. So, oh, we had someone come through, but I don't know what time they came through. So hi there. I didn't get a chance to see you because I was in my little screen. So I hope you're still there. It is late. So, oh wow. So I don't know if you're still with me. I moved my camera. So we're gonna see. I want to do a presentation, and I think I might not have you here anymore. We have one person coming out here late like this, but thank you for coming. Mystical smooches to you. Let me see. I should still be on the screen. Oh, here we go. Because I'm in my room, just kind of in the cut. Everybody's on the little lockdown or whatever. And let me see. I think I don't have you anymore, but it's okay. It's okay. I hope you had a chance to see the presentation. Let me put this camera over here. I'm gonna put it over here for just a sec. Let's see if I can. Okay. All right. I'm in the cut. That presentation was fun. So glad you stopped by. um, So we don't have anyone anymore. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna try and see if I can. I have it on the portal. The screen, the camera is going all over the place. Uh, but the Yoni portal is what we talked about. I'm just looking to see if I had someone else come through, but this is what's going on. The Yoni portal, Corona Crown Resurrection. The only one thing I talked about was the app that I wanted to put up, the app for the um, full the the moon phases, which is M2 Catalyst. That's one of my favorites. But I think I'm gonna sign out. And I thank you again, Mystical Smooches. This is Bible Magic Maven. You're watching Bible Magic ATV. This was a pop up spiritual download that I had regarding the full moon in Libra, the Yoni portal that I had come through. There was this spiritual experience that I had. I had to share, 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 and I'm going to be sharing some more. So, peace and blessings to all. Um, I'm going to put that out there. Peace and blessings to all. And I hope that you this particular live chat has found you well. And we will be back. We will be back once again to finish up our Yoni portal and our ushering in of the mother energy. We've got to bring the mother energy back. We need that balance. It's amazing that we have this time of balance that is happening. We got to remember these things. We got to, as I mentioned to one of my other people that I'm working with, is that we got to keep our lives going. I always think about a lot of times when there's certain experiences that are going on around the planet. How do you govern yourself during that time? Are you continuing your life as you know it? And then also just having those moments of silence for people who might have experienced things. I mean, I think that we should keep on going on with our lives too, because we have to keep living. We don't want to miss a beat, but we want to, be diligent and be respectful, but at the same time, we want to keep our lives going so that we can live to tell the story and be cognizant of the fact that we should have gratitude for being alive, and then also pay our respects to those who have experienced transitioning of loved ones. So once again, mystical smooches to you. This is Bible Magic Maven, also the Maven, Bible Magic ATV. This live chat was Corona Crown Resurrection. And we're just basically talking about the coronation and Easter and Esther and Ishtar, and talking about the celestial bodies and the sun, the moon, the dance of the sun, the moon, and the stars, constellations throughout the multiverse. So we're going to continue as we're going into resurrection time this weekend. All the best to you. Love you all, and be safe out there.